Awesome. Okay, well, my name's Steve Belly, and this is class number 2 of the Net Fuel Masterclass. Welcome to the call. Last Tuesday, we talked about just preparing for the program, that whole soft start week, and why that's so important to make sure that you're going to get great success. Because there's a lot of things that you can do to get your mind around what you're doing and be on board so that you're not letting it derail you as you get started. There's so many things happening all at once, and we want to make sure that we're getting a lot of those things out of the way before we even start the program. And a lot of that has to do with preparation. So getting used to the carb manager, which we're going to talk about in more detail today. And then dealing with exercise as well. A lot of times people want to do a lot of exercise, which is awesome, but quite often that doesn't work so good when you get to changing your nutrition, especially your macronutrients. If you're hooked on burning sugars a lot and you cut those out of your diet and you're trying to replace them with fat, even though that fat's got a lot more energy in it, not good things could potentially be happening to your body when you're trying to exercise through that, as a lot of people find out. So anyways, let's go into today's class. We're going to be talking about determining your numbers, so figuring out what your calorie count is. And again, think about this too, not just for yourself, but how to understand it. So you're not just writing down the numbers that work for you, but you're understanding why we're coming up with these numbers so that when you're helping somebody else down the road, and you will, even if you're not trying to coach people, but you're just trying to guide them and help them understand things better. Maybe they can't get hold of me or somebody else that might be able to help them. You want to be able to explain it to them in a way that you understand why we're telling them to do certain things. We're going to go through the calorie flow chart. So we talked a little bit about that last week, but how do you know when these numbers are working? We're going to set a particular calorie goal for somebody, and it might be too low, it might be too high. How do you know how to adjust that and why, right? And then we're going to figure out grams and calories. So for the carbs, it's simple. You're either going to be under 20 or you're going to be under 50, right? But then after that, we want to figure out what your protein count should be. So we're going to be around 25% protein, and then we're going to be up to around 70% fat, hopefully healthy fat. So we're going to talk about how to figure out the numbers for that as well. And then we're going to pull up Carb Manager. I'm going to share my screen and go right into the Carb Manager app and show you how to set that up. And so show you sometimes, at least the last time I was using it, it can get a little tricky. Sometimes it doesn't like you to change things. So I'm going to show you little hacks to get around that. So there's a couple different ways to change your numbers. Because if you let Carb Manager do it, it will adjust your numbers for you. But I don't want it to, right? I want to set something up front based on what we're thinking and a goal based on our caloric requirements and our exercise. You don't want Carb Manager messing around with that because it's usually going to really lowball your numbers because it's more excited about you losing weight quickly. And that's fine, but long term, that's going to tank your metabolism. And then we're going to talk about meals and cleansing days and fiber and water and electrolytes. And we'll go into a bit more detail about exogenous ketones and talk a little bit about MCT oil and the different types. So you should have a better understanding of all that. Okay, so let's get into it. So determining your numbers. So we're going to go to our NetFuel Masterclass notes, and we're on page 6 right now. So like I say right here in the Masterclass notes, you can do the wrong thing perfectly, but it's not going to help you get the results that you want. So we want to make sure that we're setting things up properly right from the beginning. And I give you an example here of somebody who's 140 pounds and figuring out what their base calories are. And I'm going to tell you right now, assume that this is going to be wrong for just about everybody that does it. And that's okay, because you got to start somewhere. And I prefer that people get a little too many calories in for a couple of reasons. Number one, that's going to help pull them out of having their metabolism be suppressed, because if you're not eating enough fuel, your metabolism is going to down-regulate and it's going to slow down to match up for the fact that you're not eating enough. It knows that you're going to slowly die if you're not eating enough food. And it's trying to protect you. So it's going to try and protect you so that you don't die. Right? Your brain and your body is really good at that. It's way smarter about it than you are. So if you're not getting enough calories, your body's going to do things to make sure that it continues to survive. And it's going to do things like holding on to fat. So even if you've got the perfect ratio of carbs, proteins, and fats to potentially get into ketosis, it will stop you from getting into ketosis because you're not eating enough fuel, right? You can't trick it that way because it's going to say, well, hey, that's great that you want to get into ketosis. Yeah, you've tanked your carbs and you're eating all these healthy fats, but you're not eating enough fuel for us to get the energy that we need, because we're going to lock things down. We're going to try and protect you from burning too much energy. And you want to get it into a state where it's going to burn a lot of energy. So how do you get a fire burning really hot? You put more wood on it, right? You put more wood on it and you put more oxygen in it. And that fire is going to grow really hot. You want to do the same thing with your body. You want to get lots of fuel into it within reason. You don't want to go crazy. And you want to get lots of oxygen in there so it can burn really well. And that's where burning fat, it needs that aerobic activity. I still want people to do weights. If we have time, we'll talk more about exercise and such. HIIT training, that high intensity interval training, is really good. Just one second. That high intensity interval training is really good for jacking up your metabolism, but the bread and butter for burning fat is that low intensity aerobic extended exercise, because that's going to get you into that fat burning state and carry you on that. What pulls you out of that is eating carbs. So when people do that low intensity aerobic activity and they're fueling with carbohydrates because they think they need to, like Gatorade and gels and things like that, because they think they need that for energy, and what that does is put you into that fat storing state because your insulin levels go up, and now you're not accessing that fat for fuel. So it's really hard to get fat adapted. So getting off topic because I get excited about talking about working out, but that's for another masterclass, and some people will jump into that in a little bit here. But right now we want to figure out what's the base metabolic rate for somebody. So I've got an example here of somebody who's 140 pounds, and that's their goal weight. So we've talked about this before. Remember, this isn't somebody that's 200 pounds that would be happy with 160. What's their goal ideal lean body weight? So they could snap their fingers and have exactly the perfect healthy body with 15 to 20% or so body fat on their body for a woman, maybe a little less for a guy. What would that weight look like? Now keep in mind, somebody might want to put on a lot of muscle. You might be interested in putting on a lot of muscle. That's going to jack your weight up, right? But with a normal amount of muscle, what's your weight? And the reason I say it that way is because I always prefer people lose the weight first and then put the muscle on. And here's why. Because when you're trying to build muscle, you need to overfuel your body, right? Because you've got to provide your body with that energy to build the muscle. And if somebody's not necessarily trying to build muscle, but they're interested in performance and exercising for performance, it's the same exact thing. They want to overfuel to support their body's desire to train really hard. So keep in mind, if you're trying to lose weight, you kind of need to underfuel your body a little bit. That makes sense, because we're trying to get your body to go in and burn that stored body fat for energy. You don't want to be giving it lots of fuel because it's going to burn that instead of going after that body fat on your back and your butt and your hips, right? We want to make sure it's going after that endogenous, that body fat that's in our body, rather than giving it extra calories. So what I always like people to do, even if they've got a performance goal or a building muscle goal, is lose the fat first. Let's underfuel you a little bit, not too much, but underfuel you a little bit, lose the fat first, and once you've gotten down to where you want to be, then you can start packing those calories back on to support your training or muscle building, because then you're going to be able to a lot more effectively see that you're also gaining fat if you're overfueling. And I'm a triathlon coach. I've been doing that for 30 years. There are a lot of triathletes out there who are training all the time and they can't get rid of that excess weight because they're overfueling all the time, and they're taking in all kinds of sugars, and they're putting their body into a fat storing state, not a fat burning state. So let's get it down to the weight that we want to be and then start focusing on performance. That doesn't mean you can't train. That doesn't mean you can't go to the gym and work out. It just means you're going to focus on losing the fat first instead of focusing on performance. Does that make sense? Okay, it's really important to understand, because that'll get you, when you understand that, it'll get you around that issue that I talked about on Tuesday when people come and say, well, how can I adapt the program to my training? You don't. You get the fat off first. You do the program to get that mental clarity. You kick the sugar habit, because it's not all about losing fat to get on a net fuel program, right? You do the program first, get the result you're looking for, and then you can adjust it later in terms of how do you want to go through this with a lifestyle, in terms of, what are your carb goals and how much do you want to eat to fuel your body, and how do you want to do that? What's the macronutrient profile? But let's go through the program first, get the benefits from it, and then start focusing on your training. So going to our example here, so if we've got somebody whose goal weight is 140 pounds, right, we want to add a factor on for exercise. And as I mentioned on Tuesday, Michelle's goal weight would be 130 to 135 pounds, but her base metabolic rate is 1,700 calories. It's as though her goal weight's 170 pounds because her metabolism's so high, right? So let's say we did for her 130 and her goal BMR is 1300, and then we add on exercise, she's going to be under fueled. She's not getting enough energy to support her metabolic rate and her exercise. How do we know when that, if that's the case, right? There's that flow chart that we've got in the Net Fuel group, and I've also posted in the masterclass. If you can't find it, let me know. I'll find it and send it to you. But it asks you a couple simple questions, right? Asks you, actually, I've got it right here in my, like in this little book here. Let me just, I'll show it to you. So that's what the flow chart looks like if you haven't seen it, right? And I'll read it to you. It says, so how are my calories set correctly to lose fat? And I said, well, did you use the formula in the file section? That's what we're talking about right here, right? And if your answer is no, then I said, well, you should do that, right? And then the next question is, okay, have you been taking those calories for at least 2 weeks? Because sometimes if somebody suppressed their caloric intake for a while, their metabolism's tanked down, and it's going to take a little while for it to get back up. So let's give it a couple weeks. And if they say no, well, I go, well, then you should do that. So you want to make sure that they follow the program, right? Because if they're asking you, are my calories set properly? You'll see me do this all the time with people that ask that question. Did you follow the program, right? The formula, and how long have you been doing it? I need them to understand that the answers are here, right? And then it's like, are you losing fat, weight in inches? Because if the answer is yes, then we're going to ask them, are you tired? Yes. Well, then you need some more calories. You're still getting results, but you can add more calories in. If you're not tired, then you're probably eating enough and you need to get less calories in, right? So, and if they aren't losing fat, weight in inches, then I'm going to ask them if they're tired. And they say yes, they need more calories. If they aren't tired, they need less calories. And if they are getting results, then I'm going to ask them, are you tired? If they say no, then hey, great, you're doing great, just keep doing what you're doing. So if somebody's not getting results, they are getting results and they're tired, then they need more calories, right? And usually it's a fine line. And if they're going to adjust the calories, I'm going to say adjust them by 100 to 200 and hang out there for a week or so and see how that works. We did that with the lady that I'm coaching with the training and nutrition program just recently, and we just had her tweak her calories, and in 2 or 3 days, the energy came right back up again. Because your body's looking for that energy, right? And as you get fat adapted, one of the things that a lot of times people are going to notice is that their body starts to get, let's say you're bringing in 1,500 calories from eating, and you weren't initially getting any energy from your body, but then you start getting really good at being fat adapted, and you start pulling in hundreds of calories from your body. Well, now you've got lots of energy. Maybe you're eating too much. Maybe you can bring your caloric intake down a little bit because you're getting a higher amount of calories from your body fat. And hopefully what I like people to do, if possible, is just exercise more with all that extra energy that they're getting from their body. So they can keep eating the same, but then just get out and go for an extra walk, or walk a little bit harder or a little bit farther, or add in some weight training, or try some different types of activities. That would be my preference. So anyway, so how do we know how many calories to add on for exercise? So let's say, go back to the example here. If somebody's at 140 pounds is their goal, and they're going to set their BMR at 1,400, even if they're sedentary and they say, I don't exercise, I don't do anything, still add on 10%, right? So that would be another 140 calories. If they work out a little bit, maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 times a week for half an hour to 45 minutes or so at a time, great, add on about 20 to 30%. And then if they're exercising kind of regularly, 4, 5, 6 days a week, up to an hour, add on about 40% or so. If they start to train harder and longer, especially on the weekends, and they can get up to that 50, 60%. And then if they're exercising really hard, maybe training for a marathon or an Ironman, they're training basically every day for an hour to 2, and then for multiple hours on the weekend, they could be doing 75% to 100% more. So 100% more would take that 1,400 and just double it to 2,800 calories. So Michelle's up and around that 50 to 75 to sometimes 100% range. She eats about 2,300 calories, right? Even though her base rate would be 130, it's higher because of her muscle mass and activity that she's used to cranking out. So she's going to pull in a lot of calories. So if she tried to follow this program and only set it at 50%, right? That might put her to 1950 calories. It's not going to be enough. And after a week or so, she's going to be starving and tired. We're just going to raise your calories up until she starts feeling better. Because I'm more interested in somebody having energy, because that's a better indication than what the scale says. And we're going to talk about the scale, and there's about 7 or 8 things that the scale is showing you, and only one of them is fat. Right? So people jump on the scale all the time and they get all upset because the scale's not moving. Well, you're gaining muscle, you're gaining hydration in your cells, you're putting glycogen in your muscles, right? Maybe you took a long bath and you're absorbed a lot of water from the shower or the bath that you were in. Maybe you haven't pooed in a few days, so you've got all this colon matter packing up in your system. That's got mass to it. The scale does not care what it is measuring. Right? It is just measuring how much you're getting pulled down towards the earth. It doesn't care about all the things that are causing that. Okay, so as I said here, right after the numbers, the main reason people fail to lose weight is when they're watching what they eat is they just don't eat enough calories. So the number one thing that you're going to try and say to yourself or other people is just eat more. It's a hard deal for people to go through when they spend a lot of time dieting and avoiding fat to say, eat more. Because when they do that, they're going to increase their overall caloric intake, and along with that, the grams of fat that we want them to eat. So the more calories, the more fat they're going to be bringing in. 70% of these calories are going to come from fat. That's a lot of fat that somebody's going to have coming into their system, and it freaks a lot of people out. Okay, so let's figure out, let's just jump to the next page here. We're going to jump through the carbohydrates. So if somebody's doing ultra, we're going to be down under 20 grams or 20 or under grams of carbohydrates. That's net carbs. So keep in mind there's total carbs minus the fiber. What's left over is the net carbs. This is where the carb manager is brilliant. It does all of that for you. You just have to set the numbers in initially. Right? So that's pretty simple. If somebody's going to do the light program, it's going to be under 50 grams. We don't have to calculate anything. We're just punching that number in. For protein, they're going to be doing 25%. So if we take that example that we had on the previous page of 2,100 calories, right? So if we're taking 1,400 and adding, say, 50% on there, that's another 700. That's 2,100 calories. That's the example that we're going to use here to calculate the grams of protein and fat. Then we're going to go to take that 2,100 and multiply it by 0.25. Okay, that's 25%, and we're going to come up with 525. So that's on page 7. If you don't have to calculate it, it's right there. And that's 525 calories. You're going to take that number, because there's 4 calories per gram for protein. You're going to take that 525 and divide it by 4. That's going to be 131. Right? So that's 131 grams of protein. And remember before, we talked about the protein requirements that people are going to have. If you're under 100, you're going to do 1 scoop of isopro twice a day. If you're 100 to 130, it's going to be 1.5 scoops. And if you're over 130, you're going to do 2 scoops of isopro twice a day. So in this example here, this person is going to take in 2 scoops of isopro twice a day. Right? They could get away with 1.5, but at least 1.5, probably 2, because they're so close to the line. And then for the fat, we're going to take the 2,100 and multiply it by 70%, so 0.7. That's going to be 1,470 calories. Divide that by 9, because there's 9 calories per gram for fat. And that's going to give us 163 grams of fat. It's a lot of fat. Right? That's why we want people to get that fat coming in first thing in the morning. You can get a couple of tablespoons of oil and butter, etc., in your coffee in the morning, and every tablespoon of fat is about 15 grams. So right there, that's 30. You have 2 tablespoons of butter and oil in your coffee in the morning. There's 30 grams of fat coming in of the 163. If you don't start having that fat in the morning in that bulletproof coffee, you know what I mean by say bulletproof, it doesn't have to be bulletproof oil, but just that bulletproof style coffee, that starts that fat coming in early, kicks in the ketone productions and helps your body be comfortable burning fatty acids, but it also fills you up through the course of the day. That's the other reason why we want people to have that in. Even if they don't like coffee, try and get them to do it for a couple of weeks as they're going through this program. Or they can do it as with tea, right? But just try and get a carrier in there so that they can get that fat in the morning, because it fills them up, helps the body generate ketones, and it takes a chunk out of the fat requirement that they're going to have to eat through that course of that day. they wait until 11 o'clock, it's hard to get all the fat they need in between 11 and 7. So I like people to get that fat in coming in early. Okay, so that's the carb. That's how we set up the calories in the numbers. So anybody have any questions on that? Okay, let me go right here to my, where did I put it? I'm gonna go to Carb Manager. Can you see my Carb Manager here? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so this is the typical thing here. So this is approximately what that person that's at 2,100 calories is going to be looking for, right? These numbers are pretty good, right? Even though they're a little off, I said 131 and 163, I think, and our grams of carbs are a little high here, so I'm going to try and adjust that. So what we're going to do to set it up, so let's say somebody's got their numbers, they know their caloric requirement, and they've got their grams of protein and fat, and they know they want to do 20 grams or under. And we're going to go down here to the getting started thing, and this is exactly the same on your phone, right? We're going to click getting started, and these are the things that we're going to go through. So this is all being recorded, so you're going to be able to see this later and go back and check it out. It's also in the notes on page 8 of the notes, okay? Masterclass notes. So it's just step by step, it's all in here. So we're going to click net carbs on, track all macros, track calories, US Imperial, username, you can put that in there, click continue. So this is me, 466, 5'11", 185. I'm just gonna say lightly active, continue. Now, I don't wanna have any change in calories because it's gonna mess things around, right? So I'm gonna change that to 0, and I'm gonna change this to 2,100, right? And so it's going to change that for me, it looks like, because based on my weight, I shouldn't just be doing 2,100. Because, oh, you know what the problem is, because I put my weight in, not somebody else's weight. Okay, that's fine. So we're going to change this here. So this option here, carbs, proteins, fat ratio, you can either do the 5-25-70 keto, or you can go down to custom percentage. Okay, either one works. Change that to the 20. And now it might change things around. See how it does that? It changes stuff. I don't like it when it changes it, but it does. So once it does, then I'm going to click apply all my macros, and I'm going to go back here and see if it accepted them. It did. This is good, right? I'm at 2,100 calories. I'm at 20 grams of net carbs, and I'm really close to the goal fat and protein that I was looking for before. If that doesn't work, though, then go to settings and go to macros, and you can do it here. And sometimes it'll take it a little bit better here. So once again, settings, right? And then you're gonna go up here to macros, and you can adjust it this way. If it doesn't work the other way, this way tends to work. But that's it. It's really simple for setting that up. You're just gonna go to the getting started thing, go through the process, put your numbers in here, click apply macros. If that's not working, click settings, go up to macros, do the same thing. And then once it's all set, you're gonna go up to my daily log, and you're just gonna check your numbers and make sure they're good. Because if they're wrong and somebody's trying to follow the program and they're trying to match up with the wrong numbers, it's just not gonna work for them. So we wanna make sure that we get the calculation set up properly initially, and that we wanna set up the carb manager properly. MyFitnessPal is probably the same thing. I just haven't used MyFitnessPal, so I don't know exactly how to set it up in that, but I'm sure it's quite similar. Okay. Any questions on setting that up and pumping it in here? Okay. So I'm going to go through quickly how to enter stuff in here just so that you see it, but I'm sure you're all familiar with it, but just a couple quick little tips. Obviously, you're going to go up here to the plus sign, and you're going to type something in, let's just say mayonnaise, right? And then you're just going to pick something. Here's something that you always want to keep in mind is quite often a lot of the things that you're going to find in here, somebody's put in. And just because they're in Carb Manager doesn't mean they're right. Like Ionics, for example. You can type in Ionics Supreme from Isogenics, and there's a bunch of different examples in there, and not all of them are right. Like, it's not like Isogenics went to Carb Manager and put this in. It's not like Carb Manager scanned the Isogenics label and put it in properly. Somebody typed it in and submitted it, and it may have been wrong. So check to make sure that the numbers that they're showing you are correct, right? So as an example here, we've got a tablespoon of mayonnaise. If you've got mayonnaise and you're going to use this for the first time, check to make sure that your tablespoon of mayonnaise on your container is 10 grams of fat and 0 carbs and about 94 calories. It lists it on the label. You might as well look and check. Okay, so you're going to put that in there. You're going to add it to a particular thing. Let's just say lunch, and you're going to click that and add it in. Here's typically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, and you can do a recipe or a custom thing, but typically what I'm going to do is go in and add a shake, for example. So let's say I'm going to do Isopro, and I'm going to do 2 scoops. I'm going to add that into a snack. Right, and you can rename this, but my snack 1 is going to be my first shake of the day. My snack 2 is going to be my second shake of the day. My lunch is going to be what I have between my 2 shakes, and my dinner is what I'm going to have at the end of the day. Right, so you can rename snack 1 there if that bugs you, but it doesn't bug me. So then you're just going to go in and you're going to punch in all the things that you're going to put into that shake. So you're going to add it to the snack 1. And let's say you're going to put in a tablespoon of MCT oil in there. Oops. MCT, okay, there we go. So about 14 grams of fat, so 116 calories. That's a typical amount for a tablespoon of fat. I'm going to add that into my shake, and there we go. So if I just did 2 scoops of Isopro and a tablespoon of MCT oil, then that's what my shake is going to have in it. So when I go over here, I see it here, okay? And let's say I'm gonna have that exact, and maybe I'm gonna add some coconut milk in there, unsweetened coconut milk, right? Let's say I'm gonna add that, and I'm gonna have that exact thing twice a day, every day. I'm gonna add that to snack 2. So I'm gonna copy 2, so you're gonna click these 3 little dots here, click copy 2, and I'm gonna keep it on this day. So I'm gonna click set, and it's gonna ask me where. So I'm gonna go set snack 2, and there it appears right there. And then each day, I can just click that over if it's exactly the same shake, and I can copy it over to the next day. So I can click copy 2, choose 21 for the 21st, and then it's going to go to snack 1, and bang, that's in there for tomorrow, right? There it is. So the reason I like to put them all in separately is I get bored, and I don't want to have the exact same shake every day. So I might copy it over, and then maybe I'm going to do a tablespoon and a half of Isopro, maybe a little bit more MCT oil or a little different. I might add some chia seeds to it. I want to be able to control it. If I do it as a recipe, then the whole recipe, I've got to redo the whole thing instead of just copying over most of the things and just adjusting them a little bit. Because you can adjust it, right? It's like if I click that, then I can adjust the scoops. I can go down to 1 scoop, right? Edit it, and then it just changes it to 1 scoop. So I can copy it over and then adjust it. And I'm always going to do this at night before the next day. So I'm going to do all of this stuff. I'm going to put it in. So then I'm going to put in like for my supplements. You can go in. Oh, let's see here. Go here, supplements, complete. Here we go. So I never found the men's vitamins, so I always just use the women's vitamins. So, but I would just use all that, put them in the supplements there, and then click add, right? And so then that gives them to me every day. So I'm going to do all of these things, and I've got the extra omegas. I'll put those all in, and I would just copy the supplements over and the shakes over and adjust them based on what I think I'm going to do for that next day. And then it gives me an idea of where I am with carbs, proteins, and fats. So then when I'm starting to think about, okay, what do I want to have for lunch, right? Then I can start to add things in there for what I want and then see how it affects my numbers. And then before I go to bed at night, I don't go to sleep that night until I've got my meals all planned out for the next day and I know all my numbers are set up, okay? And then that way I just wake up in the morning, I know exactly what I need to eat and what I get to eat. And let's say people are going to say to you, well, I'm too hungry. Okay, tough. Do it for 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 days and see if that's actually where you're going to settle in. Because if you keep changing it, like if you put stuff in here and you eat extra because you're hungry, or even add extra, and it's over and above your caloric intake, you don't know if the numbers set for calories are right or wrong. But if you do it consistently, whether you're trying to eat too much food, because maybe you're just not used to it, or maybe you're just not used to eating that little amount, right? How do you know it's right? And if you haven't done it for a long enough period of time to see how your body reacts, maybe that's exactly what somebody needs to do. They're just not used to it. Here's the reality, and I've said this to people tons of time. The reason you're here doing this program is because what you're doing and what you're comfortable with doesn't work. So if you're not comfortable with what's happening right now, that's probably a really good sign that you're on the right track. So just do it and see how it works. Because what you've been doing is not working. This might work, okay? They want you to be tough. They want you to have certainty because it takes their uncertainty away, right? It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to always be right. You just set something down and make them follow it so that we can find out how they react to it. So anyways, that's setting up the carb manager. Super simple. It's really not complicated. And this is why I want people doing this on that soft start week, so that when they get into the program, they don't have to fart around learning all this stuff, getting used to weighing and measuring and entering. That's all been practiced and gotten comfortable with the week before they start, so that when it's officially start day, they're on track and ready to rock and roll. Okay, good. Okay, awesome. So let's jump into meals. I'm gonna stop the share here. Okay, so let's just jump into talking about food and all the other fun things that we get to do when we're following NetFuel. So we're on page 10 now of the program. So let's talk about water. Water's super important, as is fiber and electrolytes, right? Outside of all the things that you're going to be eating and drinking, those three things are so critical, and we'll talk about why. So especially for the cleansing component, we're getting really good nutrition into people, and we're helping them cleanse all the time. Just because they're not on a cleansing day doesn't mean their body's not cleansing, right? The shakes are full of minerals. They're supporting that person's, enzymes. They're going to start working to start cleansing and starting to attach to and convert toxins and flush them out of the body. We want to have a good urine flow to help people push that stuff out. And there's 5 excretory pathways that you're going to have in your body. One of them is breathing, right? Another one's sweating. So exercise is really good for both of those. And we've got urinating, we've got defecating, and then women are going to have menstrual cycles as well. So those are ways to get things out of your body. Lymphatic system doesn't have a port to dump stuff out to the outside. It's got to get absorbed and moved around and pushed out. So exercise is good for your lymphatic system as well. And I remember reading an article on how wearing bras too often cuts off that lymphatic movement, and that's bad for people. So, looking into something like that, like if I was a woman, I wouldn't be wearing a bra all the time. That's all I'm saying about that. So, too much information, I'm sure. So anyways, let's go into hydration, because we want to make sure that somebody's really well hydrated. And you've probably heard this a million times because you've all been in isogenics. You're going to drink about a half an ounce to an ounce of water for every pound. And I used to say that you weigh, but it's the same deal with the calories. If somebody's 200 pounds and they're trying to get down to 130 pounds, and they're trying to drink 100 ounces to 200 ounces of water a day because they're 200 pounds, that is way too much water, right? They don't need to drink that much. So what's that person's goal, ideal lean body weight? Because we don't need them to hydrate for all that fat they've got on their body. Just have them calculate it based on what their goal ideal weight is. So if it's 140 pounds, they're going to drink 70 to 100-ish or so ounces of water a day. Now, all that water can pull a lot of minerals and water out of somebody's body. And if somebody's saying that they're going crazy because they're peeing a lot, right, then just have them take more electrolytes. And we talked about that on Tuesday. It was awesome information. Just have them add that salt in so they don't have to pee as often. It'll shuttle the water into their cells rather than flow things through. And the more salt they can bring in, the better that's going to be. I don't like having to run to the bathroom all the time. It's like minutes after you start drinking your cleanse drink, it's like your body has this little switch and goes, okay, I got to pee all the time now. I don't know what it is. Just drink more water and have more salt coming in and electrolytes, and things will balance out really well. It's really important to get really well hydrated before those cleansing days start, right? So in general, we want to have people drinking more water, especially as they're going through a low carb program. They're going to flush out a lot of water. So we want to make sure they're well hydrated, but when they go into the cleansing and they start really mobilizing a lot of those toxins, you really want them well hydrated so they've got a lot of urine flow to get those toxins out of your system. Fiber is the same thing, especially the week before people are going to be doing their cleansing days. Have them focus on those really high fiber-rich foods, because that's going to bring a lot of soluble fiber into their intestines. So when those toxins get dumped into the intestines as well, the fiber is there to absorb them and hold on to them. So the toxins don't just float around. You don't see any fiber to adhere to, and they get reabsorbed into the intestinal lining. We don't want that. Right? So we want to bind up and excrete those toxins. So fiber and water, really important. So for meal days, I like to keep things super simple. Like, I love flavor, I love cooking, but I like to keep things simple. I just switch things around a little bit. So I break it up into my mind in two distinct different types of meals. So I've got lunches, which are really simple. I typically don't cook things for lunch. It's kind of throwing things together. I might cook an omelet of some sort or do some kind of quick keto type of cooking thing during lunch, but most of the time it's going to be something simple like some low carb, keto friendly vegetables. Going to put that in with some cheese and olives, and then I'm going to mix up either a tuna or a hard boiled egg with some mayonnaise. And then on the salad, I'm going to put a thing like it's a 0 carb, it's some olive oil, apple cider vinegar, mustard, and mayonnaise. Just mix that together. The apple cider vinegar is super tangy, gives a great flavor. I don't like apple cider vinegar on its own, but you mix that in with mustard and mayonnaise and olive oil, man, that is good. And just put that on vegetables, and it adds to your oil content for the day. And there's no carbs in that little dressing, and it's awesome. It's really good. So fats, we're always trying to get people to focus on healthy fats. So we want to do things like olive oil, MCT oil, coconut oil. Avocados obviously are awesome. Nuts, macadamia nuts, Brazil nuts, almonds. You mentioned walnuts the other day. Those are great options. And then bacon and cream cheese is fine, right? Things like that, and butter, but just within moderation. So you don't want to be focusing on that too much. Sometimes people come in and do a keto program and they think, okay, I can eat all the bacon and cream cheese and butter that I want, right? You can, and it might work, but it's not going to be healthy for you. So we want to focus more on the healthy options that people can get. We talked about the coffee already. So it's really there to help people get that ketone production going, but also keep them full for the morning so that they can get through that intermittent fasting period. Now, we also talked about the shakes. So some of the stuff I'm not going to go into too much detail on, but this is really important. This is where we talk about how much isopro somebody's going to be pulling in each day. And that's for the first 2 weeks when you're under 20. Once you get to the second 2-week period, so the third and fourth week, you're going to do a scoop of isopro and a scoop of isoline shake. That's just the easiest way to do it. Shake tastes great. You're still getting a great protein into your system. And then just start to factor that in if they want to do a little bit more isopro and a little bit less of that second scoop of shake because they're trying to keep their carbs down so they can save them for other things. That's cool. I personally don't like the taste of straight isopro in a shake. So I'm looking forward to getting that isoline shake mixed in there. And I think most people are probably going to feel the same way. So food. So here's some great, simple vegetables that are super low carb for the most part and great fiber and fit really well in with the Net Fuel program. So I'll just list them off here, but they're in the page 11 here of the notes: asparagus, broccoli, spinach, zucchini, avocado, obviously, cauliflower, mushrooms, kale, green beans, and peppers. Okay. And be careful of onions. Like green onions are okay, but round onions, really high in carbs. They're going to be like a keto grade F type thing. So we're going to stay away from those. But little green spring onions, those are good. I like onions, so figured that one out pretty quickly. As I mentioned, I like to keep things really simple. So if somebody's coming in and you want to help them be better at cooking so that they're not stuck and not freaking out about the complexity involved here, just have them get a few things here, like olive oil, apple cider vinegar, butter, mayonnaise, and mustard. Like, it's not complicated. These aren't super weird exotic spices. Like, I got some great African spices that I use when I'm cooking. You don't want to overwhelm people with stuff like that. It's salt and pepper, right? It's pretty simple. If you like nutmeg and cinnamon, those are good to add to your shakes to kind of jazz up the flavor of that isopro. Get some minced garlic and ginger. I like to get it in a a squeeze tube, right? Just look for stuff that doesn't have too many chemicals or any chemicals in it. Because sometimes I don't go through things as often as I think, and I just hate throwing food out. So I like the squeeze tubes of the garlic and ginger, or get them in a little jar. And then just get some meat, right? Like I like meat, so I'm going to do like steak or fish or chicken, pork, things like that. Maybe some ground beef every once in a while, or ground turkey. Have that, and then a variety of cheeses. Like that's not a complicated shopping list for anybody. And then for dinners, I usually just go with a piece of meat, and I take one of those 10 vegetables and I saute it in butter. That's a dinner. Not complicated at all, right? It might be a steak. There's lots of different ways of cooking it. You can barbecue it, you can sear it, you can bake things, right? There's so many great recipes as well. And just say to somebody, okay, if they're having a hard time, just say, well, what's your favorite meal? And I'm going to tell you, and go, okay, go on to Google, type that in, and type keto after it. I guarantee you there is a recipe on how to make that exact meal in a keto-friendly way. There is tons of options. I did that for creme brulee. There is creme brulee recipes out there. I've got a creme brulee torch. I like using it. Oh my God. So I like firing it up in the kitchen. So you can use swerve in place of sugar, and there's a recipe out there that is going to allow you to make creme brulee. Because think about it. It's cream and a bit of vanilla, and you get the swerve sugar alcohol, right? It's erythritol. You pop that in there, you mix it up. It's a little different. I prefer regular creme brulee, but if I'm following this program and I want to keep it low carb, that works great. Now, typically, people can't really go to that place in the first couple of weeks. Just have them focus on staying strong to the program. Don't worry about sweets or desserts or things like that, because you just typically don't have the room in your carb budget to do stuff like that. Go to bed early, stop thinking about stuff like that. Weeks 3 and 4, then you can start adding that stuff in, because you've got a lot of room for carbohydrates to throw stuff like that in and get away with it. Again, I just like hard-boiled eggs. I'm going to boil up 6 or 8 of them. The way I boil them is super simple. I'm going to put 6 or 8 eggs in a pot, put the lid on. I'm going to boil it. As soon as it starts boiling, I just turn the stove off and let it sit in that hot water for 8 minutes exactly. And then I just pour cold water and ice over that pot of eggs, and pour all the hot water out. Just keep pouring cold water and put some ice in there. And then once I think they've cooled down to the touch, I just put them in a bowl and stick them in the fridge. And then there's all these hard-boiled eggs, and it works. They work great. There's other ways of cooking hard-boiled eggs, but I like to keep things simple. Again, I mentioned what I do for dinner. But go onto the internet if you want to get the premium version of Carb Manager. There is a ton of recipes in there that work really well, and you can just port the recipe right over into your Carb Manager app as well. So that's another great way of doing it if you want to do that. If you don't like typing all your information in of your meals, then get the premium app and use the recipes that are carb friendly in the Carb Manager app. That's a great way to go. Talked about fiber. So let's go into cleansing days. I've been doing cleansing days this way for a long time. And I'll give you a quick history on how I got there. So I've started in isogenics, not as long as Alicia before, but about 2007. And when we started, all we had was these little snack pucks. I didn't really like them, so I didn't use them. And I got great results cleansing. I felt awesome, had tons of energy, really good mental focus. Was I hungry? Yeah, but that's not going to kill me. I've made myself feel worse doing Ironman training and racing. So being a little hungry is not a big deal. And then the chocolates came out. And I was like, man, this is amazing. We can cleanse with chocolates. And I love the way they tasted, but they never got me that same feeling that I did when I was just cleansing without anything. And then they had other stuff that came out, like the whey thins, and people. I never got involved in eating other food, but people would say, oh, you can have an apple with some peanut butter on it, or try a little bit of this, or try a hard-boiled egg or something. Don't do that. All you're doing is giving your body a little bit of fuel so that it thinks you're actually not fasting. And it's just going to keep waiting until you feed it something else, because it knows it doesn't have to go after that stored body fat, because you're going to keep eating. Just stop eating. When you stop eating, you're not going to get a whole lot hungrier. I don't care what Paul Anderson says about the chocolates suppressing your appetite. I'm still hungry when I'm eating the chocolates. They just taste good, right? I don't have that energized buzz, and I don't have as much mental focus. When you stop eating, here's what's going to happen physiologically in your body. You're getting into a fasted state. I actually encourage people to go do a workout that first morning of their first cleanse. And not an easy, I'm just going to stroll through the woods walk. It's kind of an intense workout to burn through that muscle glycogen that you've got. You want to get into the intense stage so you burn the glycogen that's stored up in your muscles and liver so that you get your body to panic faster that it's going into this state of fasting. When you don't eat anything, and you don't need to have a recovery shake after your workout, right? You don't have to do that on every workout. You're going to stay into this fat burning zone. You're going to get rid of all that glycogen. You keep fasting. Your body's going to start to react by increasing your adrenaline levels. In a 2-day fast, they're going to go up, I think it's like 114%. And your growth hormone levels for women are going to go between 800 and 1,000 or 1,100%. And guys, it's almost 1,500% increase in growth hormone on a 2-day fast/cleanse. So when you do that properly and you don't eat anything, you're getting into a really good fasted state. Now, let's assume you are still cleansing if you're eating chocolates and whey thins and snacks and having a hard-boiled egg and stuff like that. I don't know, I'm not a biochemist. I just know how I feel, right? But you're not fasting if you're eating. And to the point that I was starting to think for a while, that's a lot of sugars coming into my body when I'm doing the cleanse. If I'm going to not eat for 2 days, I want to get toxins out as well. So I'm going to have the cleanse drink because I don't feel good if I'm just drinking water on a fasting day. But that cleanse makes it so simple. So I'm thinking, how can I reduce the amount of sugars that are coming into my body at any one point in time? So instead of doing 4 ounces every 4 hours, I just thought I'm going to do 2 ounces every other hour. So I started doing that. It worked great. I got that buzz, that electrical feeling, that like the energized, buzzy feeling that I did when I was cleansing and fasting really well. So I knew I was still on point for that, and I was killing it in the gym. So those growth hormone and adrenaline levels are giving me a ton of energy, and I can go into the gym and push 20% more weight on a cleansing day than I could if I was just eating normally. So it's not like you need fuel to function effectively. You need your body to function effectively. And eating is kind of like, it's giving you stuff for the future. It's not giving you stuff for right now, right? And that's how, you know that when you're fasting and you're not eating anything, you got tons of energy. You start eating a lot of stuff, like a big meal. If the food was actually giving you energy at the moment, you would feel awesome after having a great big meal, but you don't. You're lethargic, you feel like having a nap, right? Because it's giving your body what it needs for another time. You need to eat, but you don't always need to eat. So when you're fasting, fast, right? Get a little bit of those cleanse drink sugars coming into your body every couple of hours. Drink lots of water through the day and all the electrolytes. Get a black coffee in the morning. I don't do the butter. And you can do your accelerator capsules and isoflush, but I don't do the vitamins. Some people do. I just prefer not to put a lot of stuff into my system for a couple of days. I can do without doing the vitamins for a couple of days. And the probiotics, I don't take those either. But that's kind of what I'm doing on the cleansing day. It's really simple. For when I first started doing it that way, the e-shots were out. So I was trying the e-shots in the afternoon. That helped me get through the afternoon. But then sometimes I'll have a black cup of coffee in the afternoon. And that works just as well. Okay. Let's see what else on that. That's about it. So some of the other things that we're going to do is just you want to get a food scale. I resisted, and then I realized I can't guess stuff properly, so I had to weigh it because measuring is only good for certain things. I can't measure a slab of meat, so I started to weigh it. So I got a little cheap food scale on Amazon for $10, right? And I get one that has a 0 count on it. So if you put a bowl on that, and then you can zero it, so the bowl on the scale is still reading 0, and then you can add stuff in. That's important. Otherwise, you're measuring and you're subtracting, and it's just not good. You don't want to be trying to figure out how much does the bowl weigh, then put the stuff in and subtract the other stuff. So let's go quickly over some of the isogenics products, because a lot of times what's going to happen is people are going to try not to do all the isogenics products, right? And I made a comment today, somebody was talking about how they prefer to have other protein sources than the isopro, and I go, well, you could do that, but you're not doing net fuel, right? The protein is one of the 4 key components of net fuel, and it's the macronutrient quality. You want to make sure people are getting in the required amount of isopro, at the very least, because it's so important for the body to maintain good muscular density and health. And if they're not eating good quality protein, which they're not, if they're not eating IsoPro, then they're not doing what they need to support themselves. So I'm only getting half somebody's protein requirements in by doing the appropriate amount of IsoPro. It's not like I'm trying to get them to do everything. You know, when Susan first put out the list for Pro Edge, she said 2 scoops of IsoPro for everybody. Well, if you're less than 100 grams of protein intake for the day, all your protein's coming in from IsoPro. That's not good because you can't get an appropriate amount of fat into your body the rest of the day if you don't have protein with it. So just tone down the amount of IsoPro people were bringing in based on the protein requirements. So if you follow that guide that I have, under 100 grams is 1 scoop twice a day, 100 to 130 is 1.5 scoops twice a day, and over 130 grams is 2 scoops twice a day. That's only ever going to be half of your protein requirement, minimum, right? Could even be less than half, but you want to get that minimum amount in. So, and then the isoline shake. If somebody's going to start with this Pro Edge program, 2 to 3 canisters of IsoPro and 1 canister of isoline shake is what they need to go through the whole month. Okay, so 2 canisters will probably do, obviously, if they're just doing 1 scoop twice a day, and then 3 canisters is going to be for somebody who's doing 2 scoops twice a day for sure, and then a scoop of isoline. So a good pack would be the custom healthy aging pack, because it comes with 2 canisters of shake, the Complete Essentials multivitamin, and then a $75 gift certificate or credit for other products. And they can add in the 3 canisters of IsoPro, the cleanse drink, greens, things like that. So the top 4 products are obviously IsoPro and isoline shake. The Cleanse for Life drink, we need that. That's another key component to this program, is cleansing their cells so we can better access that fat for fuel. Totally makes sense. Those fat cells are now not locked onto toxins. We can better access them when we're getting into ketosis and getting them fat adapted. If they're locked onto toxins, it's going to be harder for them to burn that fat. So we want to do the cleansing. And then the third component of why this is a great healthy program is our Complete Essentials Daily Pack. Ideally with the isogenesis, because it's such a great product, but if somebody's trying to save some money, I'd rather them not get the isogenesis, and then they add in the greens and the Isa Flush and Omegas and accelerator capsules, right? But those are in the page here on page 13, that's kind of in the order that I think things are important to have, right? If you did that, and then sometimes you'll just go through and say, okay, well, you have to get the first 4, right? And ideally the first 8. But if you can't get the first 8, put them in this order and just cut it off based on how much they want to spend. But let them know right up front, the more you get, the healthier you're going to be and the better this is going to work. And inevitably, it's the people that complain the most that are the least likely to be buying more of the products. That's just the way life is. It's like when I'm doing coaching with somebody, the people that complain the most at the front end about all the demands and things that they've got, they're usually the people who are the hardest to work with later. That's just what I found. So anyways, so there's all the products. And exogenous ketones, we talked a little bit about that the other day. You don't really need these too much if you're an exerciser and you're having a hard time making that bridge and you're following the program properly. So this is a big key component. When people are following the program, then it's okay to use something like an exogenous ketone. Drives me crazy when I see ads on the internet for people advertising exogenous ketones, and they're sitting beside a plate of potatoes and stuff like that, because it's showing you that it's sending the message that you can eat whatever you want and still get into ketosis because you took exogenous ketones. You're not getting into ketosis. You might have ketones in your system, but you're only into ketosis if you cut your carbs way down and increase your healthy fats, and your body naturally gets into ketosis. That's ketosis to me, right? Remember the first day we talked about nutritional ketosis is getting your ketone numbers over 0.5. You can get your ketone numbers over 0.5 right now if you're not even following the program by taking this, but you're not in ketosis. So you want to make sure you're getting into ketosis. So follow the program. And then the 2 times that I would have somebody use this would be if they're in that keto flu, they're not getting enough carbs to feel good, and they haven't gotten to the point where they're either generating enough ketones or gotten good enough at using them, then adding these in is going to help them bridge that gap and feel a little bit better. And even for somebody that you're coaching on a 30-day program and they're not even doing net fuel, if they're having a hard time with headaches initially, having them take something like that is going to make them feel better pretty quick. And then in energy, this would be another good one for people who are really low on energy. Again, make sure they're following the program, and this isn't just a crutch to make them, not have to follow it properly and still think they're on track. They can add that in for a little bit more of a kick of energy. And then the other time I would use it would be in exercise. So again, they're doing everything great. Maybe they're even generating a good amount of ketones or accessing fat for fuel, but they got a harder workout to do and they're low on carbs and glycogen, and they don't want to bring in gels and extra carbohydrates to fuel that workout because they're not quite as fat adapted as they want to be to get to that intensity. Then adding something like this in right before a workout, like 20 minutes before a workout, this will kick in about 5 or 10 minutes, give them lots of energy, and then they're in the workout and they'll feel better and they'll be able to get through it a little bit easier. And then the only other things I can think about would be the MCT oil. Lots of different options out there. There's always great discussions, Bulletproof and XCT. They make amazing quality, but they're really expensive. And are they better? Probably. But you don't need them in order to get into ketosis and have this program work. Any type of MCT oil that's any decent quality is going to work. I use stuff that's $16 for 32 ounces. It's from Now Sports, and just get it on Thrive. I've never used Bulletproof. I'm sure it's probably better. It's probably going to give me more mental focus. I don't think I need it, so I'm not so fussed about spending the most I possibly can on something if I think there's other options out there. Again, I'd rather spend, and I'd rather have people spend their money on isogenics products for a variety of reasons, especially if they're in my team. For the most part, it's a healthier way to go. And MCT oil, to me, for the most part, is MCT oil. There's nothing like isogenic stuff. So I want to have people, if they're going to spend money, put it into the isogenic stuff and then save it on the MCT oil. They got all kinds of money. You want to spend it on the most expensive MCT oil as well. Awesome, knock yourself out, but you don't need to. So, look at me, I'm on time today. This is awesome. So anyway, that's all I had to go through today. The next session, we're going to talk a little bit more about exercising. We're going to talk about overcoming challenges. And then on the last day, we're going to talk about monitoring and measuring. And then we're going to also talk about lifestyle options and then getting into the marketing component of it. I love talking about how people can be better at sharing isogenics and blessing more people with these great products and opportunities to improve their health. Whether you're interested in making money or not, if you focus on helping people first, even if you don't need the money, if you're concerned about what to do with it, you can send it to me, but I'm sure there's lots of charities that you have in your life you can put that. Anyways, okay, so let's open it up for questions. What's coming up for people? Anything from today or on Tuesday that you want more clarity on, or you have any questions, or what about this, or I don't understand that, or I don't really agree with that. I don't mind any of that. It's all good.
Uh-huh. I do have a question about the oil. I went to Costco and they had the MCT oil and it was organic and it was supposed to be like 93%. It's by Nutiva and I like that brand.
Yep.
Nutiva. And it had 2 bottles. And so I just was curious to see if you've ever tried that brand.
I would totally get that because I've got their chia seeds and psyllium stuff. I've got a lot of their stuff.
Their cacao nibs.
Yep.
Cacao awesome.
Yeah, I would totally get that. I think it would probably be really good.
Yeah, and it was pretty good price. It was 2 bottles for $30. Well, you can take other questions and I'll just show you a picture of it real quick.
Sure, yeah. It's probably two 32-ounce bottles, and if it's $30-something, I think that's a great price. Yeah.
I think it was $22 if I'm not mistaken, which I thought was a great bargain because I had bought one at the natural grocery store, and I think I paid probably about close to $30.
Yeah, I would totally get that. Costco gets some pretty awesome deals, so.
Oh, yeah, I love Costco. Get your money back, kind of thing. I love that.
Yep.
I'll never forget Lenny Evans talking about, Costco pays you back. And that's kind of how network marketing is. But yeah, I'll go run and get it while other people ask questions.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Elaine, what's coming up for you? So either that or you're playing with your cat. So you have a question or you're playing?
No, it's the cat. He was like climbing up the back of my head. Tuesday night I had the dog. She wouldn't stay off, and now it's this cat.
That's awesome.
I have pets. Well, I have a question about, I've never been too interested in exogenous ketones, but like today, I definitely had, now he's wanting to be on the computer. Today, I definitely had energy issues. So I'm just like, would it help that? And how much do you use?
Yeah, it totally would help. And if you're following the program properly and you're on track.
I've been really on track.
Sorry?
I feel like I've really been on track. Actually, yesterday, doing my second day, I tested because I have a precision ultrameter.
Mm-hmm.
And my ketones were 0.7 on the second day.
Perfect. That's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
I thought so.
And especially that's one thing we'll talk about it when we get to the monitoring part, but quite often when you're doing your cleansing days, your ketone numbers are going to drop down. What freaks a lot of people out. They'll come back up again when you start eating again and you get that cleanse out of your system. It's just thinking about it, all you're doing is bringing sugars into your system on a cleansing day. There's no proteins and fats to dampen those carbs coming in, so your ketone numbers are going to come down, and that's totally fine. But if you're feeling a little dragged out and you think you're following the program properly, then add in some exogenous ketones. It's just a scoop. It's kind of like, the scoop that's in a green, isogenic screens. It's like half the size of a shake scoop. Yeah. That's all that's in here, and you're just going to put a whole scoop of this in some water and just drink it down.
I have some Perfect Keto brand exogenous.
Yeah, I've heard of that. You know what? They're almost all exactly the same. It's just a ketone salt, and they might have some other electrolytes in there. What you're looking for is what are they flavoring it with, and if they're adding any sweeteners to it. So you just want to check that. So this is an example. I think I mentioned it the other day. We got BHB, so beta hydroxybutyrate, an amino acid blend of taurine, tyrosine, leucine. Then it's got calcium, sodium, citric acid from oranges, and then monk fruit extract. So I look at that, and I'm like, okay, I'll put that in my body, right? That is sucralose or aspartame and acetylflamine potassium and any of that other crap. That's not going in my house, right? And this is my house.
I think that Perfect Keto. I haven't looked at it for a while, but I still have it. Yeah. I think it's good ingredient.
I think it's good. I've heard of that before. It's probably pretty good. Just check out the ingredient list, and if it's pretty clean, then use it, because the BHB salts are all the same. It's a patent that they're following, and they all have to be exactly the same. So.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Back with the oil.
Oh, there you are. Awesome. That. Yeah, that looks perfect.
So 2 packs and then I love what it says right here. Can you see that?
Yep. Derived from young organic coconuts.
Yeah.
Supports a ketogenic and paleo diet. Perfect.
Yeah.
No
gluten-free. Yeah.
No coconut scent or flavor. Cool. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and then it's got the the backside here, the information. So I thought that was pretty good because it matched my organic one that I had bought.
Yeah, that looks really good.
So good deal. I like it when Costco carries good, healthy things.
Yep. Lily, you had a question where you were stretching.
I do, and this is probably for you and Elaine. In my isogenic experience and working with diabetics, Elaine, and because she's taught diabetes education, I just wondered what your take on cleansing is and what you do. Like a type 1 diabetic, can they cleanse, Elaine, or can they not? And you, Stephen, what have you found in your experience in dealing with? Because I know there was a type 1 diabetic. There was a triathlete in our company at the beginning. I remember seeing pictures about her.
Yep.
She did everything successfully, but I didn't know if she cleansed or not.
Yeah, I'll give you my perspective. And again, I'm going to preface it by saying I am not super familiar with diabetes and diabetics because I don't work with that many of them. I'm not diabetic. And so I haven't looked into the specifics. But what I've learned is that most people have a pretty good handle on it for themselves. And they know what they need to do when they're putting certain things or not putting certain things in their body in terms of insulin or medicine that they were going to be taking or not taking for a particular period of time to react. The way I explain it to them is isogenics is a very controlled product.
Okay.
You know exactly what you're putting into your body when you're putting in a scoop of Isopro or a scoop of isoline shake or a combination of the two, because you can measure it and see exactly what you're getting in the sugars in that. So when you figure out what you need to do once, chances are you just need to keep repeating that. When you're eating normal food, it's all over the map because you don't really know exactly what you're putting into your body. So you have to test and measure and adjust and do a lot of different things. Whereas isogenics, in my opinion, just makes it a lot easier for people. So I say that up at the front end, and then they have a pretty good chance of getting on track with it pretty quickly. I don't follow up with the specifics of what they're doing because it would probably confuse me, but they seem to know and they manage it really well. But I'm going to pass it to Lane because I'm interested to hear what she has to say. So.
Well, because I have an insulin pump, I just need to test and adjust my basal rate, and if I go a little bit high, take a little extra insulin for that.
Yep.
Or usually I like to keep the horse in the barn and not let it escape and chase it after the fact.
Right.
But in that event, it's not going to be that much. So if I needed to take a little extra insulin in retrospect, I'd rather do that than like get low and then have to figure out what kind of carbs I'm going to take to make my sugar come up.
And how long have you been using isogenics in general?
Not long. Actually, Lily and Pancho worked with me when they still lived in Rochester, and I tried some products. I do have a lot of food sensitivities, so I had concerns about doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm okay with the Isopro.
Yep.
I have some sensitivities to things that are in isoline. So I guess, I was going to maybe message you about that and see what your suggestions would be.
Yeah, message me for sure. Here's what I found, and I'm not saying this is applicable for you, but a lot of times when people tell me they're sensitive to things that isogenics has, like, I'll just take whey protein for an example, right? And I know that might not be what you're talking about because you're using Isopro, but as an example, right? They go, I can't use whey protein, or I can't have things with dairy is another perfect example, right? I go, well, isogenics is different because it's not like normal whey protein, and it's not like normal dairy that's contaminated with all kinds of fillers and a whole whackload of other things that may be causing the issue. So if somebody's having whey protein that's got all these fillers in it, and they think whey protein is the issue. No, it's the fillers that are the issue. And isogenics doesn't have those in it. So then they come in and they try our shakes, whether it's the Isopro or the isoline. And they're like, wow, I'm not reacting at all. Because there's no fillers and crap in there. So that might be the case for you regardless of what it is. Now, having said that, my wife's got a latex allergy and she can't have kiwi, mango, papaya, banana, or avocados. So there's a lot of products that isogenics has a lot of those things in it. She can't have them because her blood pressure will just bottom out and her heart will stop beating. So if she doesn't have ionics and she doesn't have Nox and she doesn't have her isoline shakes or isoline pro, but she can use Isopro, the trial release she can use. There's a lot of products she can use, but those are some sensitivities that if you're sensitive to those things, don't take them. So.
Right. And I've kind of been hoping that if I can do some healing in my gut with doing keto, that some of my sensitivities would improve or go away.
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
I did years of, kind of the binge yo-yo dieting thing and used a lot of artificial sweeteners. And I know that they really damage your gut flora and your gut in general. So I'm staying away from those and hopefully things will improve.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Alicia, do you have some comments on that?
Yeah, I had allergy problems since I was in 3rd grade. Actually, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Erin Brockovich. Okay.
Yeah.
We lived in Hinckley.
Oh, wow.
During that time. And my mom heard about people getting sick. And thank God my dad got a job and we moved to Michigan. But ever since then, I always had a lot of allergy issues, hay fever, blah, blah, blah. And I always was on some kind of medication because I would just drip like a faucet. And I did allergy shots for 8 years and all kinds of things like that. And like you, Elaine, I did artificial sweeteners. I just tried to do things that would help me keep the weight down, because this was before I knew anything about nutrition. I was just trying to survive, right? I felt like a zombie, and I was doing things just to try to survive. And then I did isogenics, the cleansing, and I was one of those that, I don't know if you ever remember, but that cleanse way back then, I literally pinched my nose, suck it up with a straw.
I couldn't smell it. I would start gagging. Yeah.
I was real sensitive to smells because you're real allergic. So your body is actually, when you have all these sensitivities and allergies, it's because your body can be so super toxic. It's going like, oh no, we don't want anything. We don't, nope, that might be bad for, nope. They're confused. And that's why I love also the water cure salt, the water and salt cure, because also, and the cleansing, because I think it starts to, in my, the way it's been explained to me is that a lot of the cells start to get cleaned up. It's kind of like all the heavy coats go off. You're getting the saline, the flush from the inside of your cells, and it's emptying them out, because otherwise the water's just going through it. Mm-hmm. And you actually start to feel better. And what I noticed is a lot of my allergies started, well, I don't want to make a medical claim. Let's say sensitivities, all went away. All of them. I have not been on anything, over the counter during those times. So I just watched that happen to me. Mm-hmm. And so I've seen it happen with other people. And you've been in long enough, Steve. I'm sure you've even seen it with people that have skin issues that are happening because the body's trying to purge stuff out. Oh, yeah. And then they start doing this, and voila, their skin starts to clear up.
And sometimes
so I would just say, Elaine,
sometimes not necessarily an even progression too, right? Sometimes you're getting better, and then it's worse, and you break out because your body stuff out, and then it gets better again. So.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just, the only one thing that I really do believe I'm probably more just need to stay away from it is wheat. And so then I follow more of a gluten-free program, because then I definitely am avoiding wheat. Yep. That just, bags under my eyes the next day and feel horrible.
And I think a lot of that too is the glyphosate issue with all wheat sprayed with that these days, almost all of it. That's horrible for people.
Well, even if you try organic, I can't do that either, Cool. So I think just that's the legitimate. Now, we've got people that they eat peanut butter and they'll have, you better get them to the hospital quick kind of thing. So that's something else. Just an encouragement for Elaine is cleansing will be really good. And if you just do it enough, you'll start to see that aloe vera with those peptides is just amazing. And the burdock root and the yellow dock root, all of those ingredients that are in the cleanse are amazing. Yes, it's in high carbs, but what it's doing on a cellular level is just amazing.
It would probably taste so bad if it didn't have the carbs. Badly as I wanted in my body, I don't think I could do it.
I know, literally, pinch my nose shut.
It's so good. I had to put it in a water bottle when I started isogenics because I was gagging drinking it if I could smell it. I know exactly what you're saying. So Then they changed it, and it's still good, but it doesn't smell bad. So.
Yeah, well, but we have, I still run across people that have sensitivity issues. They smell things and then they don't want it. Right there, that's a clue to you. They're super toxic and they super need isogenics.
That's true. Yeah, it's like when somebody takes the shake and it tastes really chalky or metallic to them. I go,
yes,
you're just not used to so many minerals. Yeah.
Well, they probably have leaky gut, and they probably have a leaky gut issue. Mm-hmm. And when that's happening, your body's reacting to everything. Because that stuff is escaping your gut and it's not good systemically. And the reason I can speak about it is because I experienced that myself. So that's why I know how horrible that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. Great information. Thanks. And it looks like you had something to add there. So I was going to pick on.
Yeah. Well, I think it's encouragement to Elaine. I wanted to give her encouragement that and there will be some things that she probably won't be able to handle, just because her body is naturally sensitive to it. Yeah. But this will give her a clue, Elaine, I would just encourage you to just keep trying things.
We had a nutrition coach actually in our UK team, and I talked with him every Monday. And for the first 2 to 3 months, there's a lot of products she just knew she was going to be a mess taking. She tried a little bit, reacted badly, but she wanted to take them. So just kept cleansing and sort of slowly introducing things. Now she's using everything and loves it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just letting her body adapt. So, cool. Pam, any questions?
Actually, I was just going to ask you if when you're talking to different clients, do you differentiate between cleansing and fasting?
I kind of use the two. When I'm talking to them, I'll say fasting / cleansing, and when I say if you hear me say cleansing, I'm meaning fasting and cleansing. So if I say one, I'm also meaning both.
Okay.
I do them both together.
Because people are so shocked when they hear that I've fasted or I've cleansed for 2 days. They look at me like I'm doing something extremely unhealthy.
Right.
And so I was just curious how you...
Yeah. The way to explain that is if you eat a little bit, your body's expecting that you should be eating a lot. And it's putting you into a metabolic state where it wants more food and you're not giving it. So you can think about like an anorexic, right? Your body's expecting that you're giving it all these nutrients and calories and you're not. So that's why dieting is so bad for you, because your body's expecting to get all this stuff in and it's not. When you fast, it says, okay, you're not eating. Let's go into this fasted state where we can go in and recycle old, inefficient, damaged cells. We can take the energy from those cells. We can crank up growth hormone and adrenaline, and we can put ourselves into this different metabolic state based on repair and rejuvenation. Right?
Okay.
It's completely different than eating a little bit, which is dieting, which isn't doing anything for you.
Right.
So, and just say this, because they can't argue with it. So I love it. Just say, when you try it, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Because all my words are doing is hitting you in the forehead and bouncing off. You're asking me the question, so I'm going to answer it. But the only way you're going to know the answer is to actually do it.
Right.
So, and that's it. I just leave it at that. And I go, and I'm happy to do it with you. Explain it as you're going through it. But you can't knock what I'm doing unless you really try it. Right. And I just leave it at that. It's kind of like going for a run and having runner's high, right? If you're not a runner, you think they're freaking insane. Right. You hate running and there's no way I'm going to love it. Right. So the only way to know is to go out and do it. And it might not happen the first couple of times you do it. It might take a while. Right? It's like when these people get on this health kick and then they won't shut up about being healthy. Because they were never healthy, and then all of a sudden they started eating a little bit better. Now you don't want to hang out with them because all they're talking about is ashwagandha and chlorophyll and algae, right? Anyways.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I'm looking forward to the announcement coming up Monday. They're making a pretty big deal about another splash coming up on Monday, so we'll see what happens, what the splash is.
It's pretty awesome.
Isagenix Corporate.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Well, let me end the recording, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what's going to happen on that Monday announcement. So, okay, thanks for getting on the call today, guys. I'll hit the recording now.